Right, so when we're in the meeting, everybody, if you just put your microphone on mute, and you can do this by clicking the top right-hand corner of your box and switch your microphone, sorry, bottom left, switch your microphone on and off. That way it stops sort of echoing in the meeting as well. When you're ready to ask a question, if you don't want to put it into the chat box at the bottom where you can type, then you can just raise your hand by using the reactions box at the bottom of the screen and clicking on to raise your hand there, and James will find your question. So first of all, we've got a few pre-submitted questions to go through. We're going to put 2 to Kayleigh and Pursey, sorry, Kayleigh and Sally each, and then we'll open the floor and take your questions from yourselves. If we run out of time, we'll send replies to the questions that are outstanding in the chat box to the attendees after the event. So afterwards, we're hoping to make the meeting available on our podcast channel and also to our support group and on YouTube as a recording. So I think that's everything from me. So thanks for taking part, everybody. I'm going to set a little alarm for 10 minutes before the end because Kayleigh and Sally have generously donated the time, so we don't want to hold them up. So 10 minutes before the end of the meeting, I'll be letting you all know that it's going to close shortly. And I think, James, do you want to start with the questions for Sally and Kayleigh?
Yeah, absolutely. So just so everyone's aware, we have had a few questions sent in. This is by some of our group members that can't join this evening. So I'll start off with asking Kayleigh. So this question from one of our group members. Despite hours spent exercising and stretching, while I am stiff and slow and have no power, my right leg is smaller than my left, despite working them both equally. Should I work the right one harder?
Hi everybody, nice to meet you. Yeah, so my name's Kayleigh, and yeah, in answer to that question, obviously depends on your background and things like that in terms of why you're getting stiff. It's not uncommon to still feel stiff after surgery. Obviously, if it's quite early days, then you are going, it's going to take some time. So stretching is really important. I think it's one of those things that sometimes you might feel like you're not getting much benefit from, but actually it's really important to maintain your range of movement. The other thing is thinking about how long you're stretching for. So I think you tend to sort of see, a lot of people in the gym, they might stretch off for like 10-15 seconds, and actually there's nothing wrong with, for example, being in a frog stretch. So when you're lying on your back and your knees are out, you can stay in that position for a good 10-15 minutes to really give the muscles time to relax into that position. So if you're still feeling stiff, I would think about the amount of time that you're stretching for. The other thing to consider is where you're stretching. So I know it's difficult for some people to access, but thinking about things like hydro, that de-weighting from the water should also help you relax and help with that as well. In terms of having one leg still bigger than the other, obviously it sounds like if you just have more motor power in that leg, so yes, you want to be trying to work the other one. So again, I don't know the situation, but for example, we will go to the side that is working more. So I would be, if you're standing up, having your good leg, as it were, up on a step, so that you're trying to take that one out of the equation and working on the weaker one. But muscles, they do take a long time to build up, and it might be that you will always have one stronger than the other. Again, it's difficult to say without knowing what's happened. And just going back to the stiffness, the other thing is, if you've had depending on your surgery, if you've had a fusion, then you are going to have loss of range. Certainly in your back, you might be a bit more stiff from that side of things. So yeah, that would be my advice on that one.
Great, thank you for that, Kayleigh. That's absolutely brilliant. So what we'll do, actually, I'll pass the next question to Sally, just to give you a bit of breathing space, Kayleigh, thank you. So Sally, related to tailbone soreness, is there anything that you could recommend easing the tension as pelvic tilts don't tend to release it?
Yeah, so in terms of the tailbone, there's a couple of major muscles that attach to your tailbone. So your glute attaches to your coccyx area, and also one of your major pelvic floor muscles also attaches to your tailbone or your coccyx, your levator ani, that sort of, if you think about your pelvic floor as being like a hammock that attaches right from your rectum right to the front. And so it's also about those two muscles as well. So it could be that they're quite hypertonic, they could be quite tight, and actually you want to actually mobilize those, or it could be that it's transferred pain from your thoracic or lumbar region as well. So it's, again, without sort of knowing a bit more, so lots of so rather than just thinking about your pelvic tilts being in one plane, you also need to think about maybe doing some hip stretching, but yeah, you really need to find out, what is it, tightness, or is the muscles not relaxing so you're not able to loosen them? There's quite a few things that could be going on.
Okay, that's brilliant. Thank you for that, Sally. So over to you, Kayleigh. Are there any key exercises we should be doing to strengthen that area of the spine? And are there any that are risky after decompression surgery?
So I would obviously go on what your surgeon has advised. Like, they should obviously be telling you, hopefully, what you can and can't do over a certain amount of time. Generally, the big ones are, after surgery, no heavy lifting. Sometimes they don't want you to sit for too long. So really, you need to be obviously following that side of things, and twisting, that might be another one, but again, it's specific to what you've had done. And then in terms of exercise, like lots of core kind of Pilates work is going to be what you need to do. So a lot of this will be lying down and working on the control of your tummy and back. There are the NHS actually do some, like, on their website, some quite sort of basic Pilates videos which you might be able to follow. The other thing is, if you've not done Pilates before, is looking for online. I think I unfortunately don't do it, but a lot of physios who are trained in Pilates will do classes like face-to-face, or trying to find one that you could do online. And I think that is probably quite useful, because obviously they can be giving you that feedback of if you need to tweak anything, whereas obviously if you're just following a video, you can't do that. And then, James, was there a bit about sleeping as well in that question?
Yeah, that's it. So thank you for that part. So the support group member just added an additional sort of question on the back of that. So are there any particular sleeping positions to be avoided, and any that are encouraged?
So I think, again, sort of really the main thing is trying to manage your pain. So that will be specific to you in terms of what you find more comfortable. But I think just don't be afraid to use lots of pillows. So, if you're happier on your side, you want to try and keep your spine in alignment so you're not twisting too much. So it might be that you need a pillow between your knees. Again, if you prefer to be on your back, then having your legs supported. So I would just say, yes, definitely just don't be afraid of using lots of pillows just to get yourself comfortable. But I wouldn't, there's not really a do or don't on that. It's trying to get you as pain-free as possible, as quick as possible.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Kayleigh. So last one from our online support group member before we move into the live question. So final one for you, Sally. So this is regarding foot drop. I regained my dorsiflexion within months of decompression surgery. I'm still experiencing lack of plantar flexion, and it's been 1 year and 3 months. Is that likely to stay that way, or is there still a chance of recovering and being able to do plantar flexion?
Yeah, so again, it depends what's already been done and how much exercise someone's already done and been doing. So we talk about neuroplasticity. I think you did some a talk last week on it, or and it's about looking at growth of nerves. So there's lots of studies going on at the moment saying, we used to say that's magic 2-year time frame, but actually I think we found actually neuroplasticity can happen, still happen. Obviously the rate of change might decrease. So I always say to people, never say never. I think you need to exercise and put stimulation in to see if you can improve. In terms of plantar flexion, it's not uncommon with Cauda Equina that the dorsiflexion comes back, because the plantar flexion is a lower nerve. So we often find that it's the push in walking that people find difficult. So there's lots of exercises to do in terms of just pointing your toes and maybe using a TheraBand to push against that. So there's lots of equipment, like that's quite a cheap bit of kit that you can get, and Willpower will if you sign up to those, I think they will actually send free TheraBand to people. So it's definitely worth getting that. If you are in a pool, so I quite like the flippers and things like that. That's quite a nice way of increasing muscle power. Obviously, if you've got more funding, there are things like electrical stimulation that can be used for sort of lower motor neurone injuries. They tend to be more expensive, so it's not a cheap option. But it can help with sometimes improving stimulation. They have to be used over a period of time, so it's not something that you're going to notice immediately, as in any strengthening of any muscle group. Obviously, we want to normalise walking pattern as well. So I think everyone gets a bit worried about using ankle splints, and I think people think that it's going to make them weaker. There's lots of studies that actually show that actually putting someone in a normal walking pattern actually makes those muscles work. So it could be that you need a referral to an orthotist to maybe look at a splint that gives you that propulsion, or maybe an insole. It depends on the degree of weakness that you have. There's lots of tricks that you can do with strengthening.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Thank you, Sally. So just having a look here. So that's all of our questions that we've taken from our support group members. So thank you for those questions. But we're going to start moving on to the live questions and anyone that has their hands raised. So we've got a few in the chat box. So I'm just going to work from the top. So this one will be for you, Kayleigh. We've got a question from Abhishek. Apologies if I've pronounced that incorrect. So my feet has sponginess, doesn't have grip, and turns or leans outward when I'm walking. Could you kindly suggest any physio exercises? I'm age 73 and I have years of suffering from TS. Adding to that, I don't have any strength in my lower back to stand.
Okay, so that kind of follows on quite nicely from Sally there. So in terms of the sponginess, what you want to be doing, that's going to be due, I presume, to your altered sensations. So you want to be looking at trying to give your feet lots of different inputs. So doing lots of stuff in bare feet is really good, and just having them on different sensations. So whether that's like a hard, cold floor, under, having a towel underneath, a wobble cushion if you've got access to that, and just giving it lots of input. In terms of the grip, a nice exercise is actually again with a towel on the floor and your foot on top, trying to sort of pull the towel up with your toes. You also mentioned that your ankle sort of turns or leans outward, and again, I think if given that you've obviously had this for a while, I would be thinking about a referral to an orthotist to see if there's something they can do to some kind of splint to better support your ankle, again, because then that will help with your standing and walking. In terms of the strength in your lower back, again, it really probably comes back to those kind of core Pilates exercises, but also doing stuff from like a high sitting in what we call a perch position, and trying to get looking at your trunk and your posture, and trying to get all those muscles to engage, because yeah, obviously if you've not got strength in your lower back, it's going to make it a lot more tricky when you're walking. So yes, that'd be my answer for that one.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, so next up we have, so this is hands raised, so Kayleigh Head, if you could just unmute yourself, and if you're happy for the camera to be on, please switch your camera on, and we'll fire this question across to Sally when you're ready. Just going to unmute.
Hi, I've unmuted myself.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm getting a lot of deep pelvic pain, and it's really hard. I don't know whether this is how it started. This is how my Cauda Equina started in June. And when I could be just walking along, and then it's like a real bad spasm, and I can't tell if it's in my back or if it's in my pelvis. And it literally stops me in my tracks. My issue is this pain is getting much worse, but I've got no input from any physios. I've literally had one session, and my second Cauda Equina was really wide. Apparently, I had a dual tear, and I'm a little bit concerned that I've only had one physio session, and she literally showed me 2 exercises. And I'm only 44, and I've had to stop work. And yeah, I was wondering if there was anyone near me where I could go and see them, pay privately.
So sorry to hear that you're having problems again, Kayleigh. You said that you think that it's a similar symptom that you had when you've had a progression again with your Cauda Equina.
Yeah.
And I think that's key, that you need to listen to your body, and if you are concerned, then you need to get it checked.
Well, I actually spoke to the spinal team yesterday, and she didn't sound concerned at all. She said just to see how it goes.
Yeah. If I would always put you as the expert. So if you're concerned, I think it's worth getting it checked out. I think from a physio point of view, I probably wouldn't want to do hands-on with you if you're saying that you are concerned that you're getting the same symptoms as before.
Sorry to interrupt. The only difference is I'm not getting that right leg pain, which is I had the sciatic pain on the first Cauda Equina.
I think, and we've got lots of experts here, but with Cauda Equina, you don't have to have each one of those red flags in order to be concerned. And I think, and having had the problem before, you say you're under a spinal team. Is that the neurosurgeon or the orthopedic surgeon?
No, it's unfortunately, I was left 15 days with the Cauda Equina. They diagnosed it on an MRI scan and then failed to send me anywhere. And it was only because I rang 999 when I'd become incontinent.
Yeah.
That I then had the surgery. The pathways changed, so I'm actually under orthopedics. Normally, I would have gone to a different hospital, and their spinal teams are much better, but they don't do that now. So
you phone them, and they're not concerned. Have you spoken to your GP? Whether your
not
GP?
I was waiting for them to call me first. The best way I can describe it, and like I described to her, I feel a bit like a time bomb, like it's going to go at any second.
Yeah.
When I get that spasm, it's so intense.
Yeah. And if you've had it before, I think you definitely need to get it checked out. Whether it's
twice.
It could be nothing, but I think you've had it before. If it's not a further progression, then it's looking to see what's happening and what's causing that spasm. So again, where are you based, Kayleigh?
I'm in Teesside.
So is that
So it would be North Tees I'm under.
not very good with geography? Is that not Newcastle area?
Not quite as far, but yeah, I'm
Yeah.
north.
Yeah. So definitely there's so in terms of if it's pelvic or back, it's quite hard, because obviously if it's back and transferring to the pelvis, that's different. Your GP can probably refer you to a number of different services. They're sort of the ones that have the gatekeeper in terms of referral. Privately, there are pelvic physios, specialist pelvic floor physios who also have a musculoskeletal background, who are quite good. But again, I think anybody would probably say you need to get those symptoms checked before they would do anything.
Yeah, I'll call my GP tomorrow. I didn't know whether it was quite common to get low deep pelvic pain and spasms afterwards. She said it was normal.
You can, but you said that this is how you had the
It's how it initially started.
Yeah.
Right,
Do you mind if I just interrupt a minute? If you're in North Tees, Kelly, are you under sort of fall within James Cook University Hospital at Middleton?
Unfortunately not, no. I tried to go there on my second Cauda Equina and they wouldn't see me because I'd already had my first surgery at North Tees, because I know that James Cook is much better when it comes to spine.
All right, so whereabouts do you live?
I live in Billingham.
Is it how far from Middlesbrough are you?
I'm not far. You can choose to go to either of the hospital, but unfortunately, when I went to North Tees the first time, they said that the pathway used to be they would automatically refer you straight over to James Cook, but that changed.
And how long ago was that?
That was my second surgery was the 15th of July.
Right, okay. If you go back to your GP and ask your GP to refer you directly to James Cook to Golden Jubilee, he should be able to do that for you.
Right.
And you won't need to go through North Tees. So if you ask your GP to refer you into James Cook, then I think that's how you'll get in.
I hope so, yeah.
And he should be able to do that with the referral letter. Okay.
No, I know they have a spinal referral team. They have a spinal rehabilitation team there.
They do, yeah. Mr. Mecky is actually off work at the moment, but they do have a really good Cauda Equina clinic there. I've been sat on it, so I'm sure they'll see you. They're really good. They'll just need that referral probably from your GP as opposed to the North Tees.
I do hope so. At the second time it happened, I went there first hoping they would see me, but they wouldn't, because I'd had the first surgery at North Tees. So we'll see. Okay, thank you.
Okay, well, thank you very much for sharing that, Kelly. And yeah, fingers crossed you get the referral that you need. But if you need, obviously, any more support, just reach out to us, okay? And please keep us posted. All right. So
Okay,
thank you for that. Okay, so into a chat box question now. So this is from Suzanne. This will be over to Kayleigh. So I would find it useful to understand from a physio's perspective, what is the difference between MSK physio and neurophysio related to CES in particular?
That's a very good question. So your MSK is musculoskeletal physio. So that is generally kind of what the wider world think of physios as being. So it can be anything from people with, like, going to see them with low back pain, neck pain, sprained ankles, you know, after like ACL injuries, anything like that. And often MSK physios can be the ones that actually flag up the Cauda Equina. If you've gone to see one for back pain, then, you know, they will be checking you for red flags. So often the referral comes in, you know, that process starts when you've gone to see a physio with low back pain, and if they're picking up some red flags, then obviously they will refer you on. And then you have neurophysios, and neurophysios can cover lots of different conditions, from stroke, Parkinson's, multiple sclerosis, and then obviously spinal cord injury, which Cauda Equina comes under. So neurophysios work, like I say, with all of those, can work with all of those conditions, and really looking at the neurological deficits that you're left with. So whether it's altered sensation, reduced power, gait re-education, looking at posture and seating, hydrotherapy. So we can cover all that kind of thing. So they're kind of the main two differences. Obviously, it's much bigger than that. I don't know if Sally, there's anything you want to add to that, but it can be quite obviously confusing because there are actually lots of different types of physios. There's respiratory as well, so orthopedic. So that's, I think, probably where the Cauda Equina gets it gets a bit confusing, because often MSK is where you start as a general rule, because that's where it sometimes gets flagged up. But like I said, if you end up with lots of neurological symptoms, then you're better off than seeing a neurophysio.
Yeah, I think the only thing, I think sometimes we can work quite complementary to each other as well. I think often I see people in a Cauda Equina service, and I see them in part of the spinal unit, and I can cover quite a lot of things that maybe the musculoskeletal physio didn't know about, a lot of the signposting, a lot of the tips and tricks, so like the radar keys and the driving and the employment and the pain and fatigue. So I think it's not a bad thing to be under a musculoskeletal physio, but I think it's always good to have a neurophysio to have a look at maybe some of the things that maybe they're missing. But yeah, so you can get a very good I think I always find that a very good neurophysio is a good musculoskeletal physio, and vice versa. So most physios have done a bit of everything through our training. So.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Kayleigh and Sally, for your inputs there. So next up, we have a raised hand in the group. So we'll move over to Kirsty. So if you're happy just to unmute yourself, and we'll fire your question directly to Sally, please.
Great, thank you very much. So I had my surgery 3 months ago, and my Cauda Equina came on very suddenly. I was dealt with very promptly and have been really happy with it. I haven't got my follow-up with my consultant until November, so there's almost like 5 months between when I had the surgery and left hospital and to my follow-up. I'm getting support for a private physio, but my question is, have you got any advice for exercises to try and improve the saddle numbness? Because I'm suffering with that quite badly, and I'm doing the exercises that you've already suggested, but I just wondered if you've got any particular advice or exercises just to try and improve that.
Yeah, so it goes back to really what Kayleigh said about the different stimulation to the area. So we want to really trying to waken up that area. So just touching it, making sure it knows where it is, or knows it's there. So maybe gently sitting on like spiky balls, or using spiky balls and towels and textures. Just because, yeah, it is quite early. Internal work as well, so again, obviously vaginally and rectally as well, because that can all help. That's that's more sort of examination really, but is there anything major? I'm trying to think. Just really trying to use those muscles and really trying to get awareness of strengthening and lots of different postures. So doing things in different postures so that you're really getting those sensory feedback to that area.
We could.
If Kaylie's got anything to add.
Yeah, I was just going to say
Thanks,
about. Have you done any like stuff sat on a gym ball, that kind of thing?
No, I haven't sat on a gym ball. The main exercises I'm doing are sort of Pilates based, and like the pelvic tilts and the stretching that you've suggested. I'm doing pelvic floor exercises and just using the Squeezy app. But because I don't have much information about what to expect and when it will start improving, and if it doesn't start improving, how long should I give it? I just feel a bit blind to it all. So any suggestions you've got would be great.
I think like we would love to be able to say to you, oh, you'll definitely feel this and this time. Unfortunately, everybody is so different, and you know, we hope that as time goes on, as Sally was saying earlier, like things do improve, and you should find like things do improve, but then it will plateau as time goes on, and you're less likely to get change. So yeah, it's a difficult one to say, but yeah, maybe I was just thinking about the gym ball in terms of, because you're kind of getting that sensation from sitting on it whilst also working that area. So that might be one to ask your private physio if maybe they can go through some like specific stuff with you. But yeah, unfortunately, it is like a bit of a time thing, and it sounds like you're doing all the right stuff. So yeah, try not to worry, and it just takes time. And yeah, hopefully you'll get there.
Okay, great. Thank you. That's really reassuring. Thank you both.
Is that okay, Kirsty? Thank you,
Yeah,
Kayleigh,
lovely,
and brilliant. Thank you, Kayleigh and Sally, for teaming up on that question there. Appreciate it. So we've actually had quite a few questions flying in here, which is really good. So just keeping an eye on time. We do one from the chat box, so direct to Kayleigh. So are there any recommendations on finding a local physio who is aware or understands CS?
Yeah, so I think we sort of covered this a little bit. I mean, yeah, so your options probably are kind of an MSK or neurophysio. Again, like I said earlier, I think if you're having more neurological symptoms, you might be wanting to look for neurophysio. Obviously, if they have experience in Cauda Equina spinal cord injury, that's what you want to be going for. And the other thing is just making sure that they are HCPC registered. So that's basically a register that all physios have to be on to be practicing. So if you just Google HCPC, you can pop their name into like a search thing, and then it will just confirm whether they are or not. I mean, I'm sure most people are honest, but you've always got to make sure you've got, you know, somebody that is registered and up to date, because we have to keep up to certain standards to be on there. So that is probably the most important thing. And then yeah, ideally looking for somebody that is has some experience in the area. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for that, Kayleigh.
So there's a couple of search sites that you can look on. So the Chartered Society of Physio have got a find a physio tool, and you can put in your postcode, and you can search for sort of neurological physio. I think you speak to them and find out if what experience they've got. The other one is for neurological physio is ACPIN, which is a specialist interest group. I think they've got to find a physio, or they can reach out. I think the thing is with neurological conditions is sometimes it's about being able to use transferable skills. So just because they might not have had necessarily 100 patients that they're seeing with Cauda Equina, a good neurophysio should be able to use those transferable skills. So yeah, those are sort of two main sites I'd look on for physio.
That's great. Thank you both. And we'll pop some of the details with the links in the chat box. So if anyone wants to sort of copy and transfer that across. So we have, so next question directly across to Sally. So bear with me, it's quite a long question here. So hello, I'm currently 6 weeks post second decompression. So I've had there was two surgeries in 10 days during the summer. I've had zero input from my physio yet, but very keen to get moving. Is private physio online an option, or will I need to see someone in person? Only local option is community team, who have said they don't know anything about Cauda Equina. Main problems are tailbone pain, stiffness, loss of strength, and power in walking. I also have a 7-month-old baby and a 5-year-old. The surgeon told me not to lift a baby for 12 weeks, but doesn't seem to have a plan for how to rebuild my core. Any positive experiences of parents with small babies getting back on their feet and well post-op? Many thanks.
Right, so let's break down the question. So in terms of physio input, so you've been referred to community physio and they've said they won't put input in, is that right?
Yes, that's what I've read from here.
It might be worth going back to your GP and sort of highlighting the problem areas that you've got, and seeing sometimes there's, rather than community physio, sometimes there's an outpatient neuro service, depending on where you live. It's also worth making sure that you have been referred to a spinal unit. So as part of the commissioning, spinal units will take people with Cauda Equina. They may not put input in, but they will see you and you then be under their care for lifelong care. So you may see a physio as part of that initial assessment, and they'll be able to guide you a little bit, but that obviously there will be a wait potentially for that. So I think NHS route is definitely worth pursuing and not ruling out, because it's worth sort of highlighting to the GP sort of what areas you have.
Oh, here's Sally, who's just frozen. Are you there, Sally?
Sorry, I froze.
That's
what was
okay,
the
no
second
problem.
part of the question?
So the second element, let me just bring that up. Okay, so yeah, just regarding not lifting the baby, newborn baby, for 12 weeks. Doesn't have any plan on how to rebuild the core.
Yeah.
By the surgeon. And do you have any positive experiences of parents with small babies that get back on their
so
well?
as part of one of the services I run, actually, is a parenting service. So there's lots of different techniques that you can look at. So rather than necessarily lifting the baby from the floor or from a low area, it's looking at heights and making sure the height setup is good. How the baby's 5 months?
7-month-old.
7 months. Okay, so we should be able to sort of lift arms and sit in order to be able to help. So definitely, children are really clever at being able to adapt as well. So and they'll probably act quite differently to you than anyone else. So and they'll be in a low cot. So it's starting to think about how you lift them out, making sure if they can sit up. Cot adaptations are really hard to find because of the health and safety with doors. There is a few charities that can adapt things. There's a charity called Remap, who are a group of engineers that can adapt things that are bespoke, that aren't necessarily on the market. So that is one area. Obviously, we're quite early on in terms of your injury, so it might be something that you don't need to think about, but and as the baby gets older, it won't be a problem. Other things to think about are the swivel car seats. They're really nice because you don't have to lift the baby in, and not to lift the car seats. I think we recommend generally anyone not to hold the car seats anyway. They're a huge amount of weight. So lifting baby in a swivel car seat into the pushchair rather than holding the car seat. There's a thing, 7 months old might be too big, but there's a really nice sort of wrap that you can use called Snuggle Bundle, and it's got handles on, so you can sort of hold yourself and grab the baby and support yourself. Definitely core strengthening anyway after having a baby is needed. So lots of, we always go back to Pilates, but Pilates type exercises are really good. Heights of things, so thinking about when you're changing the baby, maybe do it in so you're not bending over. So yeah, it will get easier as the baby gets bigger because they'll be able to assist and do things. and you won't be having to lift, but you will have to adjust everything. It's like having anybody with sort of has who's maybe got a bad back with having and has a baby. So there's lots of different devices out there for lots of mothers who have suffered from back problems and anyway, so look around really, but find things that are comfortable and use pain as sort of your main thing to avoid. There's a third part as well, wasn't there?
That's it, Sally, you've covered that. Yeah,
I think I'll go back to the first one. I think you said about online physio. So yeah, there's lots of physios that will do remote consultations. Obviously it's hard often without hands-on, but there's lots of things that can be done. But I personally, I'll probably try push the NHS route first, before you spend money privately.
okay, excellent, thank you, Sally. Just something that I'll add on there as well, actually, from a sort of a parent's point of view, as your little one gets a little bit older, because I've going through Cauda Equina myself, using an extendable grabber is very useful, so it actually avoids you having to bend down. So especially if there's lots of children's knickknacks scattered everywhere, as they like to, you can just walk around. And for me, I've got an extra long one because I'm quite tall, and it works absolutely brilliant. My wife then bought one for our son, and we started to turn it into a bit of a game. But at the same time, they're actually tidying up and they don't realise. So yeah, just thought I'd add that one. So just looking at timing, we have got 3 more questions in the chat box. I'm cautious, obviously, with time. So if we could leave it as just those questions, and then we'll just tackle the 3 in there, and we've got 1 raised hand, and then that will probably just fit us in for timing, if that's okay. So we've got next question from Stephen. This will be over to Kayleigh. So, hi everyone, I have a question regarding swimming. I was told by a physio to use a float and kick in a front crawl position. I'm told me not to. Which swimming position is beneficial and also safe?
So I think swimming in general is a fantastic way to keep fit. I think it's really good for like your cardiovascular system, and it's sometimes one of the only ways people can actually exercise from that point of view. So thinking about the consultant, I'm wondering if they don't want you on your tummy because it might cause too much extension. That's the only thing I can say, again, without knowing sort of how long down the line you are. At Salisbury, I don't know what Stoke do, but we generally start people on swimming on their backs, and it might be that it depends how confident you are in the water. Some people are fine sort of straight away, but if they're worried, then we would use like a neck float so they can really sort of relax back into it without worrying about going under or anything like that. And then sometimes using those woggles, so they're like the floats, the long floats, and either have them underneath your kind of your trunk, but if you're quite confident in the water, then you might not need those kind of things. So definitely I would say swimming on your back should be the safe way. And then it might be worth just checking with your consultant if it's just for a certain period of time that they don't want you swimming on your front, or altogether. Again, normally people we see, it's that in the beginning we start with them on their backs, and then once the consultants are happy for them to go on their front, then we'll look at them on their front. So I would just check that with your consultant. What the reasoning is. It would be interesting to know, but certainly on your back you should be fine.
Thank you for that, Kayleigh. So next question over to Sally. This is a question sent in by Dan, who's on the stream. So how long are you seeing people currently waiting to see a physio following diagnosis / referral on the NHS?
So I work in the spinal unit, so we're quite different. So we have 2 streams of referral into a spinal unit. So one stream is from an acute hospital. So an acute hospital will refer onto the spinal injuries database. So that's an acute hospital referral. So they will have physios working within that hospital, seeing those patients anyway. The second stream of patients who get referred to spinal units, where I work, is through the GP, or if they're an outpatient and they've gone to see their consultant and then they've been referred. It varies in different spinal units. We have a Cauda Equina service and can see people within sort of 6 weeks of referral, sometimes a bit longer. It depends on how many referrals have come through at the time. We run a multidisciplinary clinic, so it will be done, a consultant, then occupational therapist and physiotherapist will see on the same day. In terms of general hospitals and general NHS services, I'm not sure at the moment. I know that a lot of services are still, unfortunately, very short of staff. So there is quite a long wait, but the length of time, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I would agree. I don't know where the waiting lists are at the moment. I mean, Salisbury's similar in terms of, you know, we get all our patients from the acute hospitals and then they come in. I know that they're looking at doing kind of a more outpatient service where patients will come in for like a full day and have full assessment and see everyone in the multidisciplinary team to kind of like go through everything if they've not really had much input. But again, that's specific to Salisbury, and I don't think it's quite started yet. Again, it's kind of, unfortunately, as horrible it is, working through the backlog of, you know, everything that unfortunately had to stop. So yeah, it really varies, and like Sally said, it just depends what's on the list, how many people, it does change.
The outreach services are not, so the outreach services are a spinal unit. So if you get referred through the acute database, then they normally have a multidisciplinary team. So sometimes there'll be a physio attached. Unfortunately, in the spinal units, we can't see people unless a consultant has accepted them under their care. So we are restricted in that, unfortunately. But the outreach is a good protocol.
Thank you both for your comments there. So we've got this is going to be our last question that we've got here in the chat box. So this is from Shaz. This one will be across to Kayleigh. So, hi, I'd like to ask a question. I had vasectomy 8 years ago, and I think my recovery has plateaued. I've been told my flat isn't conducive to do the exercises I've been advised to do. Do you have any advice whatsoever? Because my foot still turns when walking, my hip sometimes still swells up, and I still get spasms. So any advice would be appreciated.
Okay, so I'm quite intrigued to know what exercises that you've been taught to do, because I feel like, you know, yes, in a flat you might not be able to do lots and lots of walking, but there should be sort of plenty of exercises that you can do. I think we were talking earlier about, obviously if it's been 8 years, I'd probably go down, if you're having problems with your foot, go down that orthotics referral, so you can get that through your GP to look at, actually, is there a splint that can happen? You know, if you've been doing your exercises and everything's plateaued, then yeah, definitely be looking at if there's anything else that can help. And again, looking at if your hip is still swelling and your spasms, like, unfortunately that can happen. It's worth monitoring if you're having a time where often people get spasms when they have an infection. It can be one of the first signs of that. So if your spasms are particularly bad, it might be worth just, again, speaking to the GP and check there's nothing else going on. But otherwise, in terms of terms of exercise, if you can get out to your flat, out of your flat, you know, whether you can access a gym. There are, I know this is kind of local to me, but I think quite a lot of places do it where a healthcare professional can refer you to a local gym at like a discounted rate. You have to be quite sort of relatively independent. So again, I don't know your situation, but it might be, yeah, they give you a discount rate and you kind of have an initial assessment with somebody. It's not a physio. This is, you know, this is like a gym, but I'm just thinking about ways you can exercise. So yeah, you could get your GP or a physio to refer you to that if it's appropriate. And I think you get like a 12-week program where you can go as many times, and then they you know, but you've got somebody there that can kind of keep an eye on you. Otherwise, Sally, is there anything you'd add to that one?
No, there's loads of exercises you can do just using the furniture that you've got around your house. So I think it's sometimes not making exercise of being quite a time consuming, especially 8 years down the line. You need to fit it in with your daily regime. So if you're getting on and off the toilet, for example, you could do 5 sit to stands, or if you're putting the kettle on, doing a few squats, or taking your hands off the worktop to do some balance exercises. It depends how much muscle power and pain and function that you have, but explore what you have in the flat to not make it restrictive to you. But
and
yeah.
I think I've seen, I don't know if you guys all follow Willpower, but it looks like they've been doing quite a few, the charity, they've been doing quite a few online like classes with different people. So if you just, you know, wanted to do something a bit different but could only do it in the house, then that might be an option to have a look at what they're doing at the moment.
Yeah, there's loads of YouTube videos like chair-based exercises as well. Use sort of cardiovascular exercises. So there's lots of, I think COVID has probably been quite good in terms of putting quite a lot of resources out there online. So there's lots of things out there that can be done with equipment that is readily available, rather than having to spend lots of money and getting equipment in.
Yeah, definitely. I think I'd just add to that as well, actually, with the Willpower, definitely, Shaz, there will be a lot that you can do from home. If you go directly on their website, you know, you can click for events, and you can also order yourself some free resistance bands. You just have to upload your one form of disability. So if you've got a blue badge, or if you're receiving disability PIP allowance and things like that, and then you'll be able to follow it, yeah, from there. And hopefully with the additional movements, that will ease your spasms as well. So that's perfect, actually. That is all of our questions, and with 3 minutes to spare. So yeah, really appreciate that. So thank you everyone for all your questions. There was some brilliant questions in there. Kayleigh and Sally as well. Thank you so much for all of your comments there. You can get yourself a bit of a breather now. So Claire, anything you'd like to add just before we wrap things up?
No, I just say thanks to everyone for coming, and thanks to Kayleigh and Sally for all the information they've given us. There were some really interesting questions. I didn't imagine some of the topics that came up, but it was really interesting. There's just a poll at the bottom of the screen if anybody could take the time to fill it in, just so we can evaluate the benefit you got from the session, really. And if you've got anything else you'd like to ask us, you can email us at info@championscharity.org.uk, and we'll endeavour to sort those questions out for you. All right. So I think if we let Sally definitely skip off, because she's got to go out at 7 o'clock, and then we'll close the meeting, if that's okay. All right, Sally. So thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Right,
thank you, Sally.
Bye.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Okay, and I think what we'll do, everybody else, is we'll perhaps schedule another one of these sessions. It's been really popular for after Christmas sometime. So thanks again, everyone, and I think that's everything, isn't it, James? Thanks, Kayleigh, and we appreciate you all spending an hour with us and joining us tonight. It's been great. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.